We're starting section 2 of the course Beginning Big Intelligence with an existential question. Which came first? Intelligence within the individual or within the universe? As you recall from the last talk, our base camp is MER, or Meaning, Existence, Relationships. This talk takes aim at the existence part. The talk will include a discussion of a few slides and then a whiteboard presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. Before tackling the big picture aspects of our own big question, I want to address a potential confusion specific to this course. How does MER relate to ONT? In this slide, I explain the naming conventions and the relationship between them. In this course, MER is covered in the section we're starting now. ONT is the topic of section 3. I won't answer our which came first question, per se. I do hope that, like me, you find it more than a bit amusing to liken the relationship of minds and intelligence to chickens and eggs. In exploring the which came first intelligence question, I'll refer to some of the concepts from section 1 and weave them with big picture concepts like awareness, reality, and the universe. So even with formal philosophy aside, expect a bit of existential angst on your part. Big questions are a diverse lot, and in each, complexity is a key ingredient. And there's a funny thing that happens when people are determined to solve them through linear logic. Take this diagram of big question logic, plotted as a bell curve. The narrow tail at one end constricts an answer to the form of God or higher power. The other end, stretching complexity and nuance to the opposite extreme, rests in pure chance and random luck. I ask you to consider what it takes to stay in the middle, at maximum explorability. It rests on the ability of individuals to contemplate and integrate direct experience and perceptions that are complex. So, setting aside any strict influence of higher power or dumb luck, let us begin our perceptual and experiential romp. I told you I would talk about big picture universal concepts, yet in the whiteboard analysis coming up, I avoid using the letter U alone, as in the whole entire universe and its myriad possible intelligences through all of space and time. I refer instead to derivative universe, using the symbols DU. What we're getting at with this is a complex universe linearly transformed into human perception of all sorts. In short, a window to the intelligence of the whole through the derivative experiential lens of the individual. It's a metatautology, or it is so because I said so. Though distasteful to many, tautologies cannot and should not be avoided or dismissed as meaningless. Without them, you would not experience faith or self-awareness. Plus, big question inquiry does not get watered down by dealing with DU rather than the whole. It's quite the contrary, as you'll soon be able to see for yourself. We'll acknowledge the U universe in the lecture titled The Map. In short, rather than constructing a purely analytic answer to the question of which came first, I'll demonstrate through metaphor how a complex view of the experience of intelligence is an innate drive within intelligence itself, a drive fueled by our shared desire as individuals to belong to something greater than ourselves. Here's the essential intelligence relationship between individuals and the universe as a because I said so derivative. Dynamic feedback is generated by general awareness in one direction and reality modeling in the other. In other words, individuals have the opportunity to connect to the universe intelligently through general awareness. The universe generates usable derivative feedback that is received by the individual. What results is reality modeling on the part of individuals, precisely because DU can be modeled in intelligent terms, or realistically, by aware individuals. Notice the resemblance here to the knowing and understanding dynamic in the shedding excesses talk. Recall too from the intelligence inventory, I defined knowing as mental activity that is original and belief-based, and understanding as mental activity and content that is feedback-dependent and meaning-based. Big intelligence notions of I and DU begin like that as well. So there's meaningful overlap between individuals and knowing and derivative universes and understanding. For now, though, I'll leave that at an assertion. Feel free to express your thoughts and questions in the online discussion. To address our big question, which came first, I first and you first positions are defined like this. For individual first intelligence, I am aware. Multiple I's have the potential to amplify knowing. Examples of I first intelligence are research institutions and journalism. For universe first intelligence, you is reality. Multiple derivative yous or perspectives have the potential to amplify understanding. To think of examples of derivative you first intelligence, recall the approaches under the collective intelligence umbrella from the intelligence inventory. And what remains? A big blank circle in the middle of our diagram. Before I reveal the intelligence dynamics in there, I want you to picture the circle as a giant letter O, and now as a shield. I'll add a sword here to make the shield imagery more realistic. Why the letter O? Because this isn't just any shield. It's our shield from obscurity. In shedding excesses, I talked about veils to big intelligence. Now we have a shield from obscurity. There is indeed a theme running through big intelligence. Be curious about things seen by the mind's eye, as well as things unseen or hidden. In relation to the which came first intelligence question, the shield represents the neither I nor you first position. At a personal level, that position is a sort of relational ideal. An individual knowing within a more far-reaching, if not universal capacity for understanding through continuous cycles of awareness and realization. From the R in the Basecamp name Mer, you get that relationships are important. The relationship between the shield and everything else is between what is known or understood and what is not. That was introduced in Veils to Big Intelligence and will be developed more in the next talk. The relationship I'm talking about right now is what's going on within the shield itself. As we already see here, it's formed a sort of dynamic relationship. It's a fundamental concept developed in Section 3 when we get into ONT and referred to as tension. Thus, the overarching definition I'll apply for the I-DU dynamic is resolving tensions. I'll develop that more in a minute. In keeping with our intelligence theme, the tensions I'll use as examples are those with dynamics between knowing and understanding, as well as among varying sources of knowing and understanding. Naturally, tensions have sides, like the ends of a rope in tug of war. Examples of one side of a tense relationship are duty regulation, morality. Physical and emotional tensions exist as well and do tie to intelligence, but we'll be getting ahead of ourselves to talk about that here. In relation to our which came first big question, the shield represents a neither I nor you first position, which could be seen simply as a non-committal position. But there's another option. Dynamically characterize the complex tension relationship itself, reflected here as being between awareness and reality modeling. In addition to forming a shield from obscurity, it's key to big intelligence. Think of the shield's outer edge as moving dynamically within its environment. By way of metaphor, we shift awareness and reality in order to respond dynamically to conditions outside of our self-assured position. The intrinsic process of both taking up positions and shifting modes of positioning is a fundamental and critical distinction for reasons that will become apparent later in the course. I'll refer to the round cyclic edge or boundary dynamic using the term iterative to carry the existential meaning of being self-referencing. I'll refer to the insideness or containment dynamic as embedded to carry the meaning of being self-reinforcing. Please note, I've begun a glossary of terms with references to where the terms occur in the course. Use it to keep track of the terms and their uses throughout. It's available as a downloadable reference material. To complete the shield's profile, I'll mention societal examples of a neither I nor you first position. Representative governments, agencies, AI computing. Each in its idealized form provides us with meta-knowing and thus seems to help us function more intelligently within large complex networks, something we've become rather overrun with in modern times. If you're feeling some existential angst, try not to worry. You're doing great. As individuals, being part of something greater gives us the power to develop intellectual solidity and responsiveness. And through a spirited intellect, we participate more fully and are able to navigate unsettling experiences of what it might mean to not exist or matter. It's possible you feel mad or frustrated. Angst and confusion arising from meta-level views of awareness and reality modeling happen because they are a direct challenge to how we discipline our inquiring selves, and especially how we integrate others into our inquiring selves, or don't. Bouts of disorientation are to be expected in a well-lived life, right? So if you have a lot of resistance to that feeling within yourself, look to see if there's something from your past that caused intense confusion and needs to be processed. How can you exercise your disciplined, inquiring self? Get directly, wholeheartedly involved, ask questions, dialogue with others, study. When disorientation surfaces and is allowed to be a passing state, perhaps intensely felt, you will be able to move once again within inquisitive self-discipline and view others' effort in the same light. You can get this systems view of awareness and reality modeling, and there's great advantage to doing so. Without it, I assert it's difficult for ordinary people to tackle life's complexity, the structure and meaning of it all, in a systematic way. If you have the will to change your relationship to structure and meaning so as to not just be realistic, but to resonate with all, you're in for a deeply satisfying journey. Disorienting or not, this information is the catalyst to make that happen. In the next talk, we'll revisit complex meaning states. Meaninglessness and hidden and symbolic meanings can be seen as our intellectual defenses, sometimes even our offenses. The sword that slashes the existential tension between our desire to be part of something greater and to be safe from obscurity. That work will include looking at truth and doubt paradoxes on our way to grasping the meaning part of myrrh. In section 1, I described new ways to use the concepts of knowing and understanding. I did so in keeping with typical Western secular notions of intelligence that elevate the individual. When I characterized collective intelligence, for instance, I did so as a layer of individual intelligence. With the many-to-one chicken or egg intelligence question, we might just escape the trap we tend to set in being purely analytic about our connection to the universe as it is known and understood to us at the moment. Big intelligence challenges the predominant belief in the West that it's enough to optimize knowing and understanding. The which came first question suggests a kind of comprehensiveness that's possible, if not plausible, if not likely, within intelligence concepts. A connection between individuals and the universe, not just as individuals, but as a collection of individuals, plus lots of other stuff. And by the universe, I mean not just a my way or the highway say-so directorship, but a reflection of actual individuals' diverse intelligences. Is there some overarching intelligence or cosmic machinery or all-pervasive conscious knowingness at work? And how do we know and understand that? In the next talk, I'll describe what it takes to set aside the sword and shield mentality and safely enter the Myrrh Base Camp tent. The relationship between awareness and reality model in the context of meaning is where we go next. The same dynamic shown here is an idealization of belonging to something greater, and it also acts as a powerful superhero-like idealization that functions as a ruthless engine for mental perfection. Ask the question, which came first, as if there must be an answer, and you can witness the tense folly in it. The limited scope of individuals and their derivative universes from awareness and reality modeling is an existential dilemma that must be reconciled if we are to journey to big intelligence. The same dynamics, those of the shield, are what motivate us to sense more of the whole from our limited perspectives, and it serves to keep us connected to experience in a coherent way. In addition to our individual, thoughtful journeys, we're at a unique moment in collective history, and I'm not referring to the political or climate crises, at least not directly. Metaphysics is in crisis. There's also a politicized crisis in science, and they're not unrelated. The underlying problems are of historic proportions, but rather than launch into troubling details, I'll just provide a couple of resources for those who wish to investigate for themselves. Feel free to sign off now if you find yourself in crisis overload. Existential inquiry is like the CIA of philosophy. So if philosophy is at risk, intelligence is as well. For an institutional take on the philosophy crisis, I've given you a link to a 2017 invited editorial by Susan Hack in the philosophy journal Free Inquiry. It's titled, "The Real Question, Can Philosophy Be Saved?" For a taste of the philosophical challenges that theoretical physics has been up against for some time now, check out my 2016 paper published in the journal Cosmos and History. In it, I detail the metaphysical crisis in physics and refer to pioneering work to find solutions. I've also shared quite a bit of writing in that vein on the forum Quora, and given you a link to my profile on the lecture page if it's of further interest to you.